Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. Gold and silver will rise, no matter who wins the election. Let's explore! Yes, we're very, very close now to decision day as to the nation decides who the next leader will be of the free world, the next commander-in-chief, the next president of the United States. And it makes us wonder, what is gold and silver going to do? There's been a lot of different predictions out there as to where the price will be. And I believe that, there's some good arguments to be made for and some of the reasons why one would make a prediction one way or the other. But I am more convinced than ever that no matter who wins the election, we're going to see gold and silver rise in price. It just will depend on how fast it will rise as to who is elected, or what kind of policies are put into place, or what market sentiment will be. Market sentiment is just another, a more polite way of talking about the sort of the polarization or the bipolar view of the markets. There's a very psychological as to how the markets react to news these days, but really that's probably nothing new, because a lot of times the market reacts emotionally, therefore removing logic and common sense in the equation as to how or why the markets move a certain way. And I'm talking in general there, because what we can logically conclude is that through a reaction to a certain news story or a policy that's put into place that the markets hold, that triggers a series of events in the market that causes either the dollar to lose strength or gain strength, therefore affecting gold and silver prices. However, as mentioned in prior videos, there are times when gold and silver rise even though the dollar index goes down. But it's in that kind of atmosphere, and given where we are at, we have to look at fundamentals, because it's the fundamentals that will drive the gold and silver price moving forward. Gold and silver have been rising steadily for quite some time, but they've had some dips and valleys in between. Silver especially has been hit pretty hard and has lost a lot of price movement in the upwards direction, and has widened with its ratio compared to gold. But nonetheless, here we are today, gold and silver up. The gold is at near record territories. It did surpass, it blew past the record before in nominal dollars. Silver is still quite a ways away from reaching its record, but it is up, substantially over the last few months. And, it's that kind of action and activity with gold and silver prices that I think will continue in its momentum in one way or the other. Let's examine just a few things that will happen if Trump is reelected president. If Trump is reelected president, what's the one thing that will happen regardless? Another round of stimulus or relief for the CARES Act, Part 2. Even though this is really the fourth stimulus that will have occurred from this, it'll be direct payments of money into your paychecks or into your bank accounts that will essentially soften and dilute the money supply. That dilution of the money supply is something that has been going on for many, many years, but this just further enhances it. If Biden is elected president, that will happen, but it will probably be a larger amount of money thrown into the economy in the form of this Congress-backed quantitative easing. Because quantitative easing occurs without congressional approval. In fact, we've seen it. QE4 essentially started in a backhand motion, which made very little headlines, but we talked about it on this channel and other channels, and that is the what's known as repurchase agreements, which the Federal Reserve injects money to be loaned between banks. And this happened and occurred late December 2019 and into early 2020. So that's the kind of backdrop that we have with quantitative easing, with liquidity into the markets, into the stock market, and into the money supply in general out there. Even though that a lot of that money is not circulating amongst us, it is still diluting the money supply. And that's how they can get away with it. And really, that's how they got away with it before, with a third round of quantitative easing. But make no mistake, the markets react to that, and the dollar index will suffer, and it has suffered to an extent. Not to the extent that most of us think it should, but people blame a lot of that on manipulation. And though I do believe manipulation is a factor, it is a natural market forces that are at play, and being that the Federal Reserve, understanding how those natural market forces, they can do this without disturbing those natural market forces to a great extent because of this, how they're propping up essentially the stock market. And that is the ultimate manipulation that they're doing. They're taking advantage of the natural market forces when they do things like this. But that will only go on for until really it can't anymore. And so how do we measure this against a Biden or Trump presidency? Well, these repos occurred during the Trump presidency. We have this recession now, but we also are starting to see a recovery. If Trump is reelected, I believe that recovery will continue, and I believe we will see real economic gains. We're already starting to see it now with the latest GDP numbers, a record since 1952, 3.1%. So that can and will continue, I believe, under a Trump presidency. In fact, that could continue to some degree even under a Biden presidency because of the policies put into place to keep it going. But make no mistake, there will be other policy decisions that will be occurring from a Biden administration that I believe will probably be bad for business and bad for the economy and squelch any kind of recovery that could occur, therefore putting stress in the markets, and that could be bad, which could cause the dollar to lose its strength in the short term or even the medium term, and that will obviously cause gold and silver to rise. But make no mistake, Trump has not shown much indication in his policies that he wants to restrain the dollar, and you know, in fact, some may make an argument that he is pretty much a bull for quantitative easing, liquidity, low or no interest rates. And who knows? There's a talk of negative interest rates that keeps floating around there, even though Jerome Powell has said that he doesn't want to see that, and there's no indication that that's going to be happening from talks that they've had in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. But it is a real fear and possibility out there. And so no matter who is president, there is a strain on the dollar and the system that we have nowadays. That's why we are starting to see open talk now, of a global reset and the likelihood of the dollar participating in a new digital currency. You know, this reset is going to revalue debt, and it's going to revalue potentially currencies around the world in some manner or form. Now, likely they have talked about it in such a way that it's going to be as little disruption as possible. And there's also been some talk of a gold standard, and that they may be open to such a thing. And some either speculated as they absolutely have to go to a gold standard, or that they may want to include gold as part of a rules-based monetary system that they can utilize, injected as part of a ledger-based system, like a blockchain type of scenario. And if that is the case, they may do that to give some confidence to people like you and me about where this new currency system is. But there's going to be a lot of people who are against a digital currency or anything that could potentially track you, especially if it's something that is that is headed up or orchestrated by the IMF or any global organization. That's going to turn off a lot of people, and not just in the United States, but in many countries out of the world where sovereignty is key. And the further away you move government from your region and your locality, the scarier it is, and the less influence and less control you have over the situation. And I think that most everybody, no matter which side of the ideological spectrum you fall upon, unless you literally are a globalist, is we all want to be masters of our own destiny. And this is why, folks, I believe gold and silver will continue to rise through the administration, the next administration, or that comes along, or if it's the same presidential administration. And so gold and silver, they empower us. We are masters of our own destiny when we hold these metals, gold and silver. They are essentially independent of whatever anybody does to try to persuade or manipulate or change or reset any kind of financial institution out there. If you don't own any gold and silver, I would encourage you to accumulate some as your budget allows. I would never encourage you to go all in on any sort of asset class or any kind of investment or strategy or even a hedge. It's an insurance policy. An insurance policy does not mean that you should just put all of your money into it. It's a matter of providing a measure of protection against what may or even if it may not come. You're going to benefit with knowing and understanding that you have something of value, and you have something that has stood the test of time as a measure of value, no matter what your ideological viewpoints are, and no matter who is president, no matter what nation you live in, or what era and time that you live. Gold and silver are timeless. The symbols that you see on these two coins here represent liberty. They represent the ideals of a limited government. And I think they're very special. And because when you have the ideas of limited government, that empowers people. And that is why I believe it is important to hold these metals to empower us as money that stands the test of time. So I believe that gold and silver will rise. And I'm not a financial advisor, but I know and have seen history, and I know enough about what's going on, even though there's a lot of complexity into the marketplace, and understanding, too, that gold and silver will certainly take dips. Really, no matter who is president, we will probably further see dips, but they will continue to rise gradually in spite of those dips, and continue to do what they have done for millennia, and that is to preserve your wealth and as a staple of wealth in your portfolio. Gold and silver, they are strong. You and I, we shall be strong through this election season and whatever may come of it. And if you're watching this video 2 years from now or 20 years from now, I hope you understand that gold and silver are timeless, and they will continue to protect us through times of economic and other strife that's out there. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.